Welcome to the Geek Easy, fellow geeks. Let's open a beverage of your choice because today I am going to be reviewing a book. It took me a bit of time to finish, but it was worth it. Moon Knight, Volume 2. Published by Marvel Comics, written by mostly Doug Moench, and drawn mostly by Sienkiewicz. It collects all these books, okay? Which is basically, okay, I can't read all that. It finishes up his run. Okay, the first Omnibus does all his initial appearances, like Werewolf by Night and all that, all the the one-shot things and guest appearances, and then it started with issue 1 and did most of his, the first half of his first run. And then this one goes all the way through right here, which is Moon Knight 35. And that was the end of his series. And then it had a one-shot with Spider-Man, and then it came up to 1984 or 85, where they rebooted it with Mark Spector Moon Knight. It was a 6-part, 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, 6-part series where they just redid him. He had retired from being Moon Knight, was still living in Wayne Manor, not Wayne Manor, what am I talking about? Grant Mansion, but he wasn't Stephen Grant anymore, he was just Mark Spector. So this one, they basically were not dealing with the multiple personality aspects anymore. It was just Mark Spector. It was him and Marlene living the happy life. And he gets a call from, or a desire to go to Egypt. He has to go back to Egypt, goes to the pyramid where he was brought back to life, and is guided to this underground tavern where these blind priests from way back, from pre-pyramid days or something like that, and they tasked him with the new responsibility to become Moon Knight. And this is where he starts to get they gave him a new uniform and new things. So this is where he had the Ankh on his chest, the gold belt, the gold scarab darts, and all that stuff. And it only lasted 6 issues. And Marlene left him because he was going back to being Moon Knight. And so that every time something came up, he was called by these blind knights and told to go do something. It was if you ever watched the old Shazam TV show, where he was being, it was all really creepy, where this young teenage kid was driving around in a mobile home with this old man, and they'd get the little lights would go off, dee 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 dee, and these guys would say, "You've got to go do this," but they wouldn't give him any, specifics, or just give him these vagaries on what needed to be done. That's sort of what happened here, and it kind of probably why this didn't last all that long. Because it wasn't that great. And then there was like three or four issues of Marvel fanfare, and one of them shows that this is at the point where he's on the West Coast Avengers, which I don't think any of these are going to show up in the next book. But this is a really good series. Because this is still back in the day when Moon Knight was as he was intended to be. A street level character who sort of had dealt with semi-mystical stuff just because of what he got involved with. Like his first appearance was going after Jack Russell, Werewolf by Night. So that's, so he did get involved with that type of stuff, but he wasn't super powered. He wasn't going after, he wasn't doing event stuff, he wasn't dealing with the Infinity Stones and shit like that. He was just a dude who went and fought street level stuff, and he'd, every once in a while he'd like get stuck with helping Brother Voodoo and, things like that. And he did have Lockley, Spectre, Grant, and Moon Knight. They weren't technically separate identities. As in, what is it? What do they call them now? Dissociative identity disorder type thing. It was him, Mark Spector was the original identity, and he posed as Stephen Grant, he posed as Lockley, he posed as Moon Knight. So, but he if he was dressed up as Lockley, he was Lockley, he'd act like Lockley. He would insist that his staff called him Lockley, but he wasn't, Lockley wasn't really a separate person per se, as in it would be like a separate, identity. And, you could sort of see his struggle at times to keep from losing himself in those identities, but they still weren't, it's not like he was, a male version of Sybil or something. For those of you who are old enough to remember that. And he'd just go out and do street level stuff. It wasn't until the Mark Spector Moon Knight in this thing right here, I think it was a miniseries, or maybe it wasn't intended to, where he started getting endowed with mystical strength of the waxing and waning of the moon that would increase his strength, where stuff like that started getting involved, and then they just wiped out all the other identities except for Mark Spector and Moon Knight. And then just, so Crawley was gone, Gina, I think at the end of the original thing, she went off to help her brother at a restaurant. Crawley was gone. Marlene winds up leaving him. So the only person who was around, and that's only a little bit, was Frenchie. Because he was off kind of carousing with a bunch of models. Oh, how things change a little bit later. But, so yeah, this was fun to see it back in the day. Nice art, by the way. In the days that it was used to be. I mean, look at some of the great art we have right here. The way it was used to be, where he's just some street level dude taking on street level people, teaming up with Spider-Man, teaming up with Daredevil, things like that. And it's going to be nice to be able to just sit here and know that I've read every single issue. Because I've got this, I'm just about ready to grab this, I think that one right there, which is the Mark Spector Volume 1. Volume 2 is on the way, and then there's that one right there is going to be the Monch version, which is already out. Or was that the Houston? Sorry, the Houston version. But yeah, so I'm gonna give this a 4 out of 5 because there were some issues that were these came out in early 80s, 84, 85. I think was some of the latest stuff. Some of these were just a little bit. Yeah, I mean the Mark Spector Moon Knight ones were a little rough. You know, like one of them was a guy who was dressed up like Bluebeard and was kidnapping women executives. There's a reason behind it, but it was mainly because they were women in power. And it was just like, it's like, dude, really? That's your thing? That's what it was. This whole thing on misogyny. It's like that's not a thing you need a superhero to be. You need a superhero to go after, man. But anyway, yeah. So this is still a really fun read. Great cover. The end of the beginning. Moon Knight's first solo series comes to a close, including the climax of Doug Moench's and Bill Sienkiewicz's foundational run. Anyway, so yeah, I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5, just because, some of the offshoot ones, like the Marvel Fanfare issues and Mark Spector ones near the end. But yeah, I'm gonna put this away and I'm gonna grab the next one and start to read it, so I can try and finish it up before Volume 2 gets here, but I don't think it will since it's already on the way. But 4 out of 5. Let me know if you've read it, how long you've been a fan of Moon Knight, and what you think of him, whether you like him the old way or the new way. Where he's, the weirdo with the working for with the 6 or 7 different identities, working for Khonshu and all that stuff. So let me know. Like, subscribe, and most of all, enjoy your comics.